All right, let's dive into one of history's most notoriously difficult, but maybe the most influential thinkers, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Now, you're probably not reading his stuff over your morning coffee, but trust me, his ideas are absolutely everywhere. They've shaped the way we think about pretty much everything: politics, art, even ourselves. So let's try to unravel the thinking that really did change the world.
Okay, first up, a big one, Marxism. You know, Karl Marx didn't just come up with his theories out of nowhere. He basically took Hegel's playbook, flipped it upside down, and built a whole new political and economic worldview. That whole idea of history being a series of struggles, that's pure Hegel at its core.
Then you've got existentialism. Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre were basically in a constant, deep conversation with Hegel. I mean, all those big questions about consciousness, what it means to be free, how we figure out who we are by seeing ourselves in others. Yeah, that's a dialogue that Hegel kicked off.
This might surprise you, but even foundational feminist theory owes a huge debt to him. Simone de Beauvoir, in her incredible, groundbreaking work, used Hegelian frameworks to analyze the social structures that literally create the concepts of woman and other.
So, this brings us to the big question, right? How? How did one philosopher's incredibly dense ideas become the engine for so many radically different world-changing movements? Well, the answer lies in one single, powerful, revolutionary concept. It all comes down to this: the dialectic. For Hegel, this wasn't just a clever way to win an argument. He saw it as the operating system for the entire universe. It was the engine of all thought, all history, all of reality itself. It's the process that drives everything forward. So what is it exactly? Well, put simply, the dialectic is a process. It's this idea that we only make progress through conflict and resolution. You have an idea, it runs into its opposite, and out of that clash, something totally new and more complex is born. It's this constant, evolving push toward a higher truth. Hegel usually breaks this down into a three-step dance. You start with a thesis, an initial idea or a state of being. But that thesis will inevitably bring about its own opposite, the antithesis. Now, the tension between these two can't last forever, so it resolves into a synthesis. And here's the cool part: that synthesis then becomes the new thesis for the next round. It's this beautiful upward spiral of progress. This famous quote really gets to the heart of his whole philosophy. For Hegel, this whole dialectical process wasn't just something happening in our heads. He believed it was the actual underlying logic of the universe. When he said what is real is rational, he meant that history and reality aren't just a chaotic series of accidents. There's a structure, a purpose, a plot, and it's all moving in a logical, understandable direction. And that's the crucial leap. Hegel took this engine of thought and applied it to, well, everything, but especially to human history. He saw the entire story of humanity as one giant dialectical drama, marching relentlessly toward a final, specific goal. And what was that goal? For Hegel, it was freedom. He mapped out history as this slow, messy, but logical journey of human consciousness figuring out its own freedom. It starts, in his view, with the Oriental world. Think ancient empires, where only one person, the emperor, is actually free. That's the thesis. This is then challenged by the Greco-Roman world, where some people are free, citizens but not slaves. That's the antithesis. And this long struggle finally moves toward the synthesis of the modern world, where the rational ideal is that all people are free. And he didn't stop there. He applied this exact same dialectical logic to the world of art. He believed the entire history of art was just another part of this grand story of the human spirit's journey to understand itself. You see, for him, art wasn't just about making pretty pictures. It had a massive, almost sacred purpose. Its job was to take the most profound truths about us, what he called spirit, or the collective human consciousness, and make it tangible, to put it in a form we could actually see and hear and feel. This table lays out how he saw art evolving. First, you get symbolic art. Think of the giant pyramids. The spiritual idea is kind of vague, and it doesn't quite fit its massive physical container. That's challenged by classical art, like a perfect Greek sculpture where the idea of the divine and the physical form are in perfect balance. But even that has its limits, right? So it gives way to romantic art where the spirit becomes too big, too infinite for any physical form, and turns inward, focusing on emotion and ideas. He even saw a clear progression within the arts themselves. It starts with architecture, the most material and heavy art form. You're literally building the temple for the god. Then comes sculpture, which puts the image of the god inside that temple. From there, we leap into the romantic arts. Painting captures the inner world with color. Music goes even deeper, expressing pure feeling. And at the very top, for Hegel, was poetry. Why? Because poetry is the most free. It uses pure imagination and doesn't need to be tied to any physical thing at all.
So let's bring this all back together. By now, I hope you can see how this incredibly powerful system, this engine of progress through conflict, could be tweaked and applied to almost anything you can think of.
His influence is just staggering. I mean, look at this. Whether people were agreeing with him or spending their entire careers trying to prove him wrong, so much of modern thought had to go through Hegel first. He literally set the terms of the debate for the next 200 years. And here's the final crucial takeaway. Even if you never, ever read a single word of Hegel, you are using his tools. The very idea that our identity is formed by our relationship to other people, the concept of otherness, the notion that our world is a social and historical construction, Hegel gave us the language for all of that.
And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Hegel was, at his core, an optimist. He saw history as a rational, almost inevitable march towards greater freedom and self-awareness. So looking at the world today, with all of its incredible progress and all of its deep conflicts, you have to ask yourself, was he right?